Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to part 3 of our random egg exercise. And what we did so far is we basically created a button, we created a class of an egg, and then we add an instance of that class to a stage, and it's going at random positions for x, y, and random rotations, which is a random number multiplied by 360 because that's the rotation degree amount. And that's all we're doing right now. And it's a blue egg, and we thought it might be neat to also give them random colors. Now that's going to take a little bit more work, and we're going to have to do some work kind of ahead of time. And one thing I'm going to check, I'm going to go right into my library and double click right here and just check the color of this egg. I want to check because I'll start with the blue, and then I'll make maybe 4 different ones after that. And I'll go up to my color palette, and if I click on the blue here, it'll tell me the RGB is 00255. And the hex number, that's what I really want, is going to be 000. Remember, each 2 numbers here is basically an RGB equivalent. So if it's going in RGB, the highest one is FF, so that would be a blue. If it was FF in the middle, that would be green. If it was FF at the beginning, that would be red. If they were all Fs, it would be white. If they were all zeros, it would be black. And if they're all the same numbers, they'd all be gray. So we're going to make a blue one first, and then we're going to mix up some custom colors. And we can go and find any color in here that we want to use. So that we don't have to stick with just straight RGB colors. So I'm going to get out of my library here, go back to scene 1, and we're going to make a color class. And I'm going to do that above all my functions here. So I'll just take care of some of this ahead of time. This is kind of like the pre-work here. Now to make a color class is we're just going to have to go var, and I'll just call one called blue. And there it is. It's ColorTransform. It's called color, and I'll select that. It's ColorTransform, and I'll say equals, just like we did the other ones, new, and then I'll do ColorTransform. And that'll come up again, and you could put the parentheses and the semicolon. So that basically sets it up of what it's going to be. And then you could do a couple of these. We could, if you want, you could do var. We could set up a pink one, a green one, whatever. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to define what the color blue is, because there's different things you could use with ColorTransform, but all we're going to focus on is the color right now. So I'm just going to do okay. So that's the first thing that's going to happen. So that's our first one. Let's just make a second one. So I'll copy this, and I'll make a second one, and we'll make one called pink. And I'll make sure pink. Now I want to find a pink color because this isn't a pink color. How do I do that? I could basically go up here in my color palette and just look for pink. I could basically go up here, move towards the red a little bit, and just find a pink color. Now my alpha, I think my alpha's up fine. So I'm in a radial. Let me just use solid color. That'll be easier. So I'll go up here. I'll just find a pink color. Maybe I'll use one more pinky like that. And then you could just copy this. So I'll just copy this number out of here, and I'll go into my code, and I'll paste that number right here. And that should be my pink color. So if I wanted to try this out, even I already have blue, but let's say I wanted to go in here and I want to do egg MC dot. Now dot what? We don't do dot color. We can't actually color a movie clip. What we actually have to do is give it the class name, and it's actually something called, it's kind of a pain, but it's called transform dot color transform. And notice that it uses, when you're applying properties, because none of our class names start with capital letters, but properties always start with lowercase letters. So transform dot color transform. And then we're just going to say equals, and what it's going to equal, let's just try out pink and see what happens. What it should do right now, and this is just testing it again because we're going to make this a random color, but if we just want to use this variable pink, we're basically saying, hey, let's color this egg pink. So if we tested this right now, what should happen? It should make a pink egg. And it's putting a pink egg at various rotations, but it's always pink right now. But that, at least we know it works. So as long as you know that works, we know we're in good shape. So I could even leave this here because we're going to use this code to make it random. But I'll just make a couple others right now, and I'll make one more. And there's my orange. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 color classes. Make sure these are the same. Make sure orange, orange, purple, purple, green, green, pink, pink, blue, blue. Make sure you have these. So now, how are we going to make this a random color? Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to take these elements, and we had to think about this because there's different ways to, we thought, should we go through a loop, a for loop, or anything like that? And it's like, well, if we could generate a random number, we already know how to generate a random number from 0 to 551. How about if we generate a random number from 0 through 1, 2, 3, 4, the first one being 0, and then we could pull it from an array. So that's what's nice about an array. We could put these in a group. Array puts things in a group, but it also gives them a special number because they have an array number. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an array. An array is pretty easy to create. I'm just going to do this called var. You'd still give it a variable name. I'm going to call it color array, so we know that's what it is, and it's of the type array, and you'll see that show up. And then we'll just do equals new array, just like we've been doing when we've been starting new classes, and we have to do the open and closing parentheses and the semicolon. So we have a new color array. Now there's nothing in it right now. What we have to do, and actually we don't have to do this. We can really just do this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in blue, pink, green, purple, and orange. And these will automatically add them to the array. So I now have an array with these kind of variables in it. So and we don't need, someone said, well, do we need quotes in there? No, they're not actually words. They are variables. So we want to leave them as variables without quotes. We don't want them strings. So these are variables. And this is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. They have a position in an array, and it starts with 0 and then goes to 2, 3, or 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they go 0 through 4. So we know that we need a random number between 0 and 4. What we could do is create a variable that acts as a random number. It'll just be easier to plug in somewhere else. So we're just like we did with points, we're going to create a variable, and we're going to call it random. And I think we used this before. And we're basically just going to make it so that it's a new number. So we know it's going to act like a number. So it's ran number, and we could do it of the class number. And we can do it like this. So that the reason we're doing this is because that way we can use this to substitute as the random number. Since we know it's going to be a number, equals, and then we could generate a random number. And then we could plug it in as part of our array. So first, let's generate a random number. So we're going to say we're making a variable called random number. It's going to be a number. So we want it to be 1 through 4. So to do that, we're basically going to go, and I could copy this. I could copy this random number here. And I'll just copy this code. So we have math floor. Remember, floor rounds down, so that'll take us down to 0. So that one is actually perfect. And we actually want it going to 5. Because remember, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's really going to go 0, so it's always one more. So it's going to go 0 through 4. So we want this at 5 if we have 5 colors that we're working with. Another thing we can actually do here, if that was too hard to count these, we could actually do color array, and this is actually helpful if you ever changed, if you added more colors or added more things to your array. If you just did this, if you did color array.length, and what that means is, then you're not locked in to a certain number. I mean, you can add them up and go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can add them, or if you do that way, if you add another one, you don't have to keep changing this. So you could do color array.length is the same thing as 5. So it should generate a random number between 0 and 4. So what we're going to do here is we already have this kind of property for the color, except what we actually want to do is we have a random number. We're actually going to put in, this will be pretty easy, we're going to do color array. We want to pull from the color array. So we want it to either be blue, pink, green, purple, or orange. And what we can do is actually inside the brackets here, because normally we would put a certain number here. We would put, if you put brackets, and if you put, let's say we put 3. If we did this right now, what it would do is it would actually use the third one, which is 0, 1, 2. It would actually make it purple. So let's just see if this works. Okay, so because right now all we're doing is we're saying egg transform, color transform. Instead of saying which color transform to use, we're saying use from the array, choose number 3, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, which is purple. So if I did this right now and I make an egg, it should make a purple egg. And it does. It's making a purple egg. But we want it random. We don't want just 3. We want a number from 0 through 4. That would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we want random numbers. So what we can do is, since we already made a variable that's equal to that, we could just stick random in there. And that basically will mean, just like we can put I in there sometimes, what that'll do is it'll just pull a random number from here and throw it in there, a random number. So all we did was just add 2 things down here. We just made a special variable called random number so we could use that inside there. You could have really taken this whole thing and put this inside of here. That will still work if you wanted to do that. But it's really odd looking code, and it's, putting something like that inside of brackets, it's just asking for mistakes to happen. So what this should do, by putting that rand number in there, it should randomize going from 0 to 4. Or going from the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 of these, but it's 0 through 4. This one's 4, this one's 0. I keep saying that, but just so you get it. So now what should happen, there's an orange one. There's orange, there's purple, orange, green. Doing a lot of orange ones. Not getting a lot of greens here in our random, but there's a couple greens, so it's working. That's all that has to happen. Just a way to experiment a little bit. Putting things in an array and then actually matching up a random number, 0 through 4, from that array and plugging it into the array. So instead of applying one of these colors, pink, green, purple, orange, we're applying any of the colors from the array. So we're just plucking a color from the array each time. So it's pulling the random number from the array, and instead of being 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's pulling a random number, and this actually makes the random number. So that's how it works. And you could try other things with this too, but this is all that we really wanted to do with this exercise, is just kind of focus on some of these kind of foundations that we're going to be doing more and more with ActionScript.